episode 15. Welcome.
Yes,
This is Anna Dornier here, and I am with,
Mubarak and Sakarije.
and welcome. We're excited to tell you today about today's topic is called the
Mm,
path to progression.
yeah.
So let's start with this question. Are you suffering from information overload?
Mhm.
What do you think about that question, Mubarak?
I am suffering from that. That's the
Well, you're
problem.
an avid reader too, so yeah,
Yes.
definitely. But you read with intention, I think, right?
No, yes, I do read with intention, but somehow, somewhere, information just creeps in, right?
Yeah, it still
Without even,
does.
it still does. It doesn't matter who you are. Yeah. At
Yeah,
least that's my experience. Probably
for
there
sure.
is some people who are immune to it.
I don't know about that. This is why this is a good topic to talk about today, right? Because in the previous episode, we talked about the hierarchies of knowledge and how, like,
Mm,
not all knowledge is the same, right? So if you
mm,
haven't read or watched or listened to it, definitely go back to that. But
mhm,
um, uh, along the process of gathering knowledge, when does it get to wisdom? When does it become wisdom, right? So
mm.
that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
So that path to progression is all about how do we take knowledge and acquire wisdom in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and share the slide. So again, if you are listening to the podcast with your podcast app, definitely this is one of those where the visuals really drive the message home, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, if you want to download the slides, you can do so or watch the full episode on YouTube. So the path to progression, episode 15, we're ultimately going to cover how do we progress and acquire wisdom.
Mm,
So let's do this. So this is where the visuals start. We start with knowledge. You'll see a line on the slide at the top of knowledge. And then we go from knowledge to
mm,
experiencing that knowledge. And then from that, from the experience of the knowledge, we gain a deeper understanding,
mm,
right? So we gain understanding. And then when we have a deeper understanding of the knowledge because we experienced it, we can service ourselves with it, right?
mm.
Ultimately, that's how most people gather knowledge is like for a specific purpose because they want to get better at something, and
Mm,
so and they want to, like, let's say maybe develop a skill, right,
mm.
and serve themselves, their own purpose, right?
Yeah.
So from this first level, we can go up to ascend, and that is
Mhm.
ultimately how we gain wisdom. So it's
Yes.
not enough to just experience the knowledge, but to apply it, right? We talk about application and implementation all the time, and use it to make your world better, right? Serve yourself with it. And then and only then do we develop that into wisdom.
Mm,
And so there's this thing also that happens in order for us to continue gathering knowledge or gathering wisdom, I should say, is we have to humble ourselves. So we
descend.
descend. Yeah. So it looks like this triangle that you now see on the slide, and you descend, you humble yourself. You're saying, like, I don't know everything,
Yes.
right? That's why we have this kind of like negative, I guess, perception of people that are know-it-alls, right? Because like
Mhm.
they just think they know everything and like there's nothing else to learn because they just know everything, right? So we have to get to a point if we want to keep progressing to say, I don't know everything.
Mhm.
So let me get more knowledge, right? And you start this new level of knowledge. And then from that new level of knowledge, you gain experience again from that, and you can gain experience by applying it. And then you have this total a much deeper understanding again at this new level of knowledge, and then you start the process over and over again. But at this time, at this new level of knowledge, you now serve others,
Mhm.
right? And I think Tony Robbins talks about this, like one of the biggest um how do you call this, needs that humans have is to contribute,
Yeah.
right? And so this is where that service to others comes in. I think that, I don't know, I'm sure it's the same for you, Mabarak. It's like when I have a goal, and it actually involves other people, like, you know, them getting better because of what I do, it makes it so much more fun and much more exciting
Mhm.
to achieve that goal, right? Because it's not just serving me, it's serving
Yeah.
more people around me.
Common
So
good.
then from this, say it again.
The common good. Yeah.
Yes, the common good. Yeah. So the service to others, we go up again, right? Once we serve others, again, we gain that firsthand experience from it. And then we gain wisdom. And then we start the whole process over and over again. And we start a new level of knowledge each time. Do you
Mm.
have any
Yes,
uh
if you can
yeah,
go back here,
yes.
this reminds me for us who are parents, right? When you have a child, right, and they start praying, touching stuff, and this, and then you have a stove or you have a cup of tea and it's hot, right?
Yeah.
And you tell the child, you give them the knowledge, hey, son, daughter, this cup is hot. That's the knowledge, right? But
Yeah.
they have no experience of hotness. So they're like, what? So now they're curious. They want to experience it, right? And now they come and touch it. Oh my God, that's now experience. Now they have an understanding of what that knowledge that they had is, right? Guess what? Now they can serve themselves better.
Yeah.
Next time they see a hot cup, even a cup, before they touch, like, oh, is this a cup hot, right? So they start seeing differently, right? And then that's a wisdom, because in next time when it happens, they're like, wait a minute, is this cup hot or what's in it, right? Then
Yeah.
with that knowledge, they can humble themselves by finding out, right? With the new knowledge again, then they come to know that not every cup is hot, right?
Yeah.
It just happens to be that it had a hot content. Again, that's a new experience with a new understanding. That's a service to others, because guess what? As they grow, they can protect another person, or they can also themselves knowing to distinguish between the other one. And then you say, oh, my child is growing, right?
Yes.
He no longer dependent on me, right? So that's service to others when you have done a good job to yourself, right? So
Yes.
this image, it's very powerful. So if you're watching this one and you're not, if you're listening this podcast and you're not watching, I highly recommend you drop by our website or on YouTube, watch it, and I recommend you download it and you start seeing how this makes sense every day, right?
Yeah.
And also, this is the curse of knowledge at some point, because most of us, when we read, I remember you asked me a question at the beginning of this, that people read and overload information. This can be it, because you're just collecting knowledge with no experience, right?
Yeah.
Just reading, or you say, oh, I know. Yes, you know, but do you have experience? Do you have the understanding? You know,
Yeah.
it's very challenging in this world. People are gonna claim they know. Yes, they may know information, but do they have experience? Have they applied? Have they touched the pot and found out really it's hot, right?
Yes.
And do they have the
Definitely.
understanding, right? So that can be a very dangerous thing in a community, because then they're not going to serve themselves. Forget about
Yeah.
serving us, right?
Yeah.
So, but then when you read a book, whatever it is, and now that's a new information, then you go in your world and experiencing. Here's something I think Anna we talked about before. Not two people can have the same experience.
Yes,
No,
definitely.
possible. So that's why you need to go experience it yourself, because you will have your own experience with that understanding, because we want you to serve yourself first before you serve anyone.
Yeah.
As the story goes in aeroplane, that put your mask on first.
Yeah.
And if you have, it never happened to you, it may be a knowledge right now, just say it until you experience it and you find out
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not a good to put mask on someone else before I do. So how do we learn that? We're learning from other people's experiences,
Yes.
that's what they're serving us now, because it happened to them and they learned, oh, wait a minute. It's a dumb thing to put on your mask on someone else before you put it on yourself, right? So you see that chain keeps going up, and this, it doesn't end. It keeps getting bigger, and your wisdom keeps getting better, right? But
Yeah.
always remember to descend.
Yeah.
Never become that man who is the smartest person in the room, man
Right.
or woman, right? Because
Yeah.
you know that's the end.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I love that you talked about that. The danger of knowledge, or just thinking that you know it all or you've learned it all too, is because when you stop learning, that's also when the growth stops.
Hmm.
Right. So if we feel like, oh, like, why am I doing this again? Like, I've already like learned this or whatever, you
Mm.
start to have this kind of like close mind around whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
learning, and say, I don't have anything else to receive from this knowledge. And so you just like close it off and not pay attention to any insights or guidance that might come from it,
Mhm.
right? I was actually I had a call with one of our clients today, just before we recorded this episode. And I'm asking him to go through Alpha Academy again. He's gone through it once, right? But I'm asking him to go through Alpha Academy again. And he's like, oh, I can probably do it during the week that I'm home, because he travels for work a lot. Like, he drives to different sites a lot. And I can probably do it like one video a week during the week that I'm home. Like, I don't recommend that, right? Because yes, it's content that he knows already. It's knowledge that he already has. He's gone through at least one, right? And I'm thinking he got caught up. But I feel like how we designed Alpha Academy is, you have to integrate in between, right? That's why we do it for the 1 week, one session a week, and then for the rest of the week, you integrate what you learn into your life, and and do the practices consistently. Because there, then and only then will you be able to gather the insights from it as you pay more attention to what you're doing in your life. So that was ultimately my advice to him. Is like, you're gonna have, you have these recordings, so you want to, basically, I was telling him without actually showing him this
Mm.
path progression,
Mhm.
right? You have to rewatch the sessions, and then experience it, right, by doing
Mm.
the practices. And then you'll develop an understanding from that practice, and then you can serve yourself to it. And then
Mhm.
ultimately, after the 12 weeks, I told him, if you do it that way, and you're consistently doing the practice every single day, 12 weeks later, your life will look so much different, right?
Yes.
You're a different person because you gain the wisdom from that knowledge you just went through, right? by
Mhm.
by the application of it. So, and then we were talking about also, I had a call with another a CEO last week, right?
Mhm.
So this is an example, a business example as well, where I said, they're 15-minute calls, and I'm sure they're not hard, but at the same time, if you're the CEO, taking calls for, your prospects is probably like above your pay grade, right? Or yeah, or less than your pay grade, I should say.
Mm.
So I asked him, so like, I'm really curious as to why you're still taking these calls. And he's like, well, it's one of those things that, yes, you probably would have hired like, yesterday, but at the same time, I wanted to see what kind of objections we're having, so that we can improve the offer, or improve the sales pitch, for
Mhm.
it. So it's like, yeah, very interesting. So it was a perfect situation where he humbled himself, right? He didn't say, oh, I'm the big CEO, I'm not going to do these calls anymore, right? It's beyond me to be able to be doing this. But he humbled himself to gather knowledge, right? And
Mhm.
experience that, whatever it is that people are the objections people are giving, and then he'll gain a deeper understanding from that, right? So that he can
Yes.
have wisdom and run the company much better as well because of it,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. Any last minute thoughts on this one before we go to the next slide?
No, that's really good to hear.
Perfect. Okay, so some key points on this, right? You never go down to the same place. You will
Mhm.
always retain the wisdom you gained, right? And so, because I want people to know that you're not going to start from zero when you
Mhm.
humble yourself, because you've gained that wisdom from the previous level, right? And then we keep going through this process if we want to continue progressing,
Mhm.
right? like I used to say, back when I was in fitness, like if you're not assessing, you're not progressing. So it's that continuous assessment as well of like, where am I in this current level? Am I in knowledge? Am I in wisdom? Am I in knowledge? Am I in experience? Am I understanding this at a deeper level, or am I already at wisdom? And then be able to use that visual from the previous slide and see and assess yourself. Because again, when people get stuck, right, that feeling of stuckness or the idea of being stuck, it's because um, they stopped gathering knowledge,
Mhm.
right? So we have to continue going through this process if we want to continue progressing. And then the more you do this, the more clarity you will gain about your purpose and mission. That's why my advice to that client that I just had a call with, I said, you have to do it consistently every single day. Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you might miss a couple of days, or, because it's the weekend or whatever. But the
Mhm.
more that you do it, the more you start to pay attention with the insights, the guidance that life is providing you,
Mhm.
the more, especially if you started with a specific intention, right? You have clarity about what it is that you want, and he does. That's one thing that he's never wavered on, right? So if you have clarity about what it is that you want, the more that you do this practice, the more you're going to pay attention to where those opportunities and insights are in your life that you may have been missing all this time because you weren't paying attention, right?
Mhm.
So that's where that whole process goes. And service will always bear good fruit, right? Whether it's
All
service to yourself or service
right.
to others, it will always bear good fruit. And
Mhm.
I think that's, oh yeah, this one. So we'll end this with this slide. The path to progression is not a straight line. And I like this. I used to show this actually to my clients back in the fitness days, because, we think like, oh, it's going to be um, like, now that you have a fitness coach and you have this nutrition and you have all these workouts done for you, it's going to be a straight line. Like,
Mhm.
no, it never happens that way. And so if we set the expectation that on this graph your results are in the x-axis and then time is on the y-axis, um, you will see that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and there's going to be peaks and valleys in between before you even get to that momentum and achieve that destination, right? And so if we have that mindset going in, it's like, okay, there's going to be some peaks and valleys, right? With this path to progression, how am I going to approach those valleys in
Mhm.
order to get to the next peak, right? And I think you had some comments on this too, Mubarak.
No, the comment I had was when you look at the results,
Mhm.
right, and the time, right, there has to be consistency,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Without consistency, you cannot make up, because otherwise you always look at the snapshot of the current reality that you're in,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have enough data to prove it. But also, when you know that you're putting in consistency, as you like to see, it creates that momentum, right? And then when you reach at that bottom, you thought it was a bottom. When you look at the chart there before you go to higher, you think, oh, I'm ascending. But yes, you're compounding your momentum there. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it just skyrockets you. And
For
then
sure.
that's why people say, oh, that's overnight success. Oh, look at that. And then, unfortunately, other people outside, they're going to take that as a snapshot and they can't replicate it because
Yeah.
they have no idea that you had over time, right? You have been compounding it over time. You had so much valleys because it was never a straight line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important to remember that. Also, don't be fooled by it, because it's very easy to look at someone else and you're like, oh my God, they just did it overnight. No,
Right.
there's no such thing. Yeah,
There's no such thing. Definitely. We all start from zero.
no,
Yeah.
and no such a thing as a straight line. No.
Yes. Yes. And I like that you mentioned consistency here, because we were talking, my mentor, my very first mentors in the fitness industry, he posted something about consistency breeds intensity. And
Mhm.
that's the one you were talking about, where it's like one day your consistent effort creates that intensity, creates that momentum, but you
Mhm.
wouldn't have created that without that consistency,
No.
right? Day in, day out. It's so huge when you once
Mm.
you understand what consistent action does to your results. It's really amazing. What
Mhm.
it's like almost magical what happens with that consistency, right? And you were talking about snapshots, right? So I think this is actually the last slide. So thinking in rolling averages versus snapshots, right?
Mhm.
So for example, your bank account when you first opened it, right, may have started with $100 because maybe that was the minimum deposit that your bank wanted you to have, right? But when you look at the monthly average deposits for the last 2 years, right, it will tell you a lot more about whether or not you're improving your bottom line.
Mhm.
It tells the story instead of
Yeah.
just that snapshot.
Uh-huh.
And another example would be if somebody's overweight, and you see them right now, they're overweight right now. It doesn't mean that their habits necessarily need to change if their weight is trending down consistently over time, right?
Yeah.
And they're already doing the right things. So the
Mhm.
snapshot is deceiving, but the motion picture tells the story.
Yes, and also I find it based on this the graph that we just saw uh, before the slide before this one. Yeah, so your definition of someone being overweight, it's a snapshot. But
Yeah,
if he were to give you the last 6 months or last 3 months, he may not be because you may say, oh, last month he was even more overweight than the way he is right now, right? So as long as it's just a snapshot, it's you have a misinformation.
yeah,
You don't there's some gaps in your analyzation to
yes,
make a conclusion, right?
yeah,
So that's why I say let's not fall for it, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's not judge book by their covers.
Totally. And same thing with like I think we're like our worst critic, our own worst critic, right? Especially when we're trying to hit a goal. It's like we can like, and this is common in the fitness world too, when working with clients. It's like, oh my gosh, I gained 5 pounds today. It's like you can gain 5 pounds in a day just by drinking and eating for the rest of the day. If you weigh yourself in the morning and you weigh yourself later at night, yeah, you gain 5 pounds, right? It doesn't mean that like this one day I mean, yeah, it might have been a bad day of eating for you, right? But only if you did that consistently will you see the trend of your weight going up.
Mm.
But what do you do the rest of the month,
Matter.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So
Mhm.
we'll end this with Earl Nightingale's quote, and I really love this because like I said, we can be our own worst critic. We can be very self-critical, right?
Mhm.
If especially if we feel like we're not moving fast enough towards our goals, right? So he said success is really nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. This
Mhm.
means that any person who knows what they're doing and where they are going is a success. Any person
Yes.
with a goal towards which they're working is a successful person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That again goes back to that graph again, right?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a progress over time. This person knew where they're going, right? And now, depending on where they are, you looking at it from outside, you have no idea until they tell you the journey. Then you
Yeah.
can appreciate or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a perception shift as well when you define
Huge,
success in this way. Because I
huge,
think a lot
huge.
of people just say, I'm successful when I
Mhm.
hit this specific goal, right? But if you define a person, it's like if you are consistently going towards that specific destination, a specific goal, you're already successful.
Yes.
Because most people will go through their life kind of with blinders on and
Mhm.
unconscious most of the time, right? And they
Yeah.
don't even know, well, why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my mission? And what am I doing today to move towards that? Most
Mhm.
people don't think that way.
No,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I hope this episode can help them, give them that beginning mindset and also the tools they need to
Yeah.
realize that and start using it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is the end of this episode. This has been Organic Reach X.
We show you how to go with the flow organically in your business.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.